Morning everybody. Let's look at DNA replication. Introduction. DNA carries genetic information from generation to generation. It is responsible to preserve the identity of the species over millions of years. And DNA may be regarded as the reserve bank of genetic information or memory bank. Some viruses contain RNA as the genetic material. DNA is more stable than RNA, and DNA is more suitable molecule for long-term repository of genetic information or storage of genetic information. Central dogma of life, we should know this. The biological information flows from DNA to RNA and from there to proteins. That is the central dogma of life. DNA in a cell must be duplicated, that is replicated, maintained and passed down accurately to the daughter cells. So this is the central dogma. DNA to RNA, we call that as replication. DNA getting duplicated is replication. DNA to RNA is transcription, and RNA to a protein, we call it as translation. So the flow of information in the cell starts at DNA, which replicates to form more DNA. Then the information is transcribed from the DNA into the RNA. Then it is translated into the proteins. And proteins do most of the work in the cell. So we will be concentrating on the replication of DNA. DNA is the genetic material, and when the cell divides, the daughter cells receive an identical copy of genetic information from the parent cell. So how do you define replication? It's a process in which DNA copies itself to produce identical daughter molecules of DNA with high fidelity. There are different replication patterns: semi-conservative, conservative and dispersive. So this is how it is. Semi-conservative replication. After one round of replication, here you get half of the original DNA. In conservative, totally a new DNA, and then in dispersive, you get chunks of DNA material. Replication in prokaryotes is semi-conservative. So semi-conservative, this is how you have one original strand of the parent DNA and then a totally new strand, that is semi-conservative. So in prokaryotes, it is semi-conservative. The parent DNA has two strands complementary to each other, and both the strands undergo simultaneous replication to produce two daughter molecules. So you can see over here, this is the parent DNA, and then the strands separate, the bases are getting added, and then you get two DNA, one strand of the parent and one new strand. One new strand and one of the parent. So that gets duplicated likewise. Each one of the newly synthesized DNA has one half of the parental DNA, that is one strand from the original, and one half of new DNA. So this is called as semi-conservative replication. That is, half of the original DNA is conserved in the daughter DNA. And experimental evidence was provided by Messelson and Stahl. 1958. So you see the parent DNA replication, the old and the new strand, and the two daughter molecules. Okay, what is this DNA? You all know that DNA is a double helix structure. What is DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. So it's a nucleic acid. What are nucleic acid? They are polymers. Monomers are called as nucleotides. Polymers are called as nucleic acids. So all these nucleotides together form the nucleic acids. Let us look at the nucleotide. What is a nucleotide? It is a base plus sugar plus a phosphate. And this DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, is made up of many nucleotides. Okay. So let us look at the nucleotides, the components of nucleotides individually. What are bases? Bases can be either purines or pyrimidines. Under purines, we have the bases adenine and guanine. And pyrimidines, we have thymine, cytosine and uracil. See the pictures. This is pyrimidine and this is the purine. So under pyrimidine you have uracil, cytosine, thymine, and purines we have adenine and guanine. Another picture, and then you can also see how they're getting attached. So you can see guanine and cytosine attached. How they are bonded, we will see. So first we saw bases, then sugar. Sugar is either deoxyribose or ribose, and then phosphate, a single phosphate in DNA. So sugar and phosphate, they form the backbone, and the bases we just now saw, the purines, the pyrimidines, the bases lie between the backbone of the sugar and phosphate, and they are held together by hydrogen bonds between the bases. So adenine and thymine, the bond between them, it is 2 hydrogen bonds, and guanine and cytosine, it is 3 hydrogen bonds. The base pairing rule is always maintained. So you can see it's looking like a ladder. So you see like a ladder. As I told you, the sugar and phosphate form the backbone. So, and you find the bases in between. So between A and T, how many hydrogen bonds I told you? 2 hydrogen bonds. And between G and C, guanine and cytosine, we have 3 hydrogen bonds. So you see, it's a sugar and phosphate together. So this is the sugar part, the phosphate, sugar and the phosphate. And then you have all the bases in between. Okay. And this is your double helix structure. So this is how the DNA is made. And then sugars, we told you, already I told you, it's either ribose or deoxyribose. So this is your ribose and this is your deoxyribose. They're all pentose. So it's a 5-carbon sugar. See, this is your sugar, a pentose, 5-carbon sugar, and then you have a phosphate group and then a base. This is your nucleotide. The DNA strand has directionality. One end is different from the other. The 2 strands are anti-parallel, run in opposite directions. So complementarity results are there, and that is very important in replication. What are genes? Genes as information transfer. A gene is the sequence of nucleotides within a portion of DNA that codes for a peptide or a functional RNA. So, the sum of all genes, we call it as a genome. Prokaryotic replication, it is much better understood than replication in eukaryotes. The basic requirements and components of replication are the same for prokaryotes as for eukaryotes. What are the basic requirements? It is substrates, template, enzymes and proteins. These are the basic requirements for replication. What are substrates? The 4-deoxyribonucleoside triphosphate. Okay, I told you about nucleotide. Nucleotide, a sugar, a phosphate and a base. What is a nucleoside? Nucleosides are just nitrogenous bases bound to a sugar. Okay, and then in a nucleoside triphosphate, you will find 3 phosphates attached to the sugar. So that is a deoxyribonucleoside triphosphate. Then template. Okay, we saw substrate, then template. Template, both the strands of DNA double helix serve as template for the synthesis of new daughter DNA strands. So the original strand, okay, the original one, that serves as the template, okay, for your replication. Then we have various enzymes and proteins needed for replication. One is DNA B protein, helicase. This one unwinds the DNA. This is the one which is responsible to open the double-stranded DNA. Then we have primase. What it does is it synthesizes RNA primer. Then DNA topoisomerase 1 and 2. It relieves torsional strain by cutting and joining single strand or both strands. In a sense, suppose there is a supercoiling as the DNA strand is open, that time topoisomerase come and release. The DNA polymerase responsible for DNA chain elongation. Ligase, it joins the Okazaki fragments. These are small nucleotides we will be seeing shortly. DNA A protein opens duplex at origin of replication. See, I already told you DNA B helicase, it unwinds. Okay, that's an enzyme that unwinds the DNA. Your DNA A protein, see, there is a site of origin of replication. Okay, at that particular site this protein will attach and it helps in opening. Okay, so this is DNA A protein. Then single strand binding protein. What it does is, now the strands are getting separated. They bind to the separated single stranded DNA and they stabilize it. Then binding protein. They prevent the helicase from further unwinding and facilitates termination. So these are the proteins and enzymes that are involved in replication. You will be coming across all these names. Helicase or the DNA protein B, they unwind the DNA double helix. It acts like a zipper to unzip the DNA. So you can see, okay, so you have all the bases being separated and the two strands getting separated. RNA primer is a short piece of RNA around 5 to 50 nucleotides in length, which is required for the synthesis of DNA. It is mainly synthesized by DNA dependent RNA polymerase called primase. Okay, so it is an enzyme that is needed to synthesize your primer. Okay, using DNA as a template. The enzyme primase, in association with the single-stranded binding proteins, forms a complex called primosome and produce the RNA primers. Okay, did you understand? So you have these primase that synthesizes the primer. They are short pieces of RNA. Okay, and they are needed to synthesize the DNA. So the primase along with the SSB proteins, they form a complex called primosome and produce the RNA primers. DNA polymerases. DNA synthesis is catalyzed by an enzyme called DNA dependent DNA polymerase. Okay, earlier we saw for primase, that is an DNA dependent RNA polymerase. Okay, that is primase. DNA dependent RNA polymerase is primase. Here this is DNA dependent DNA polymerase. Okay, there are many polymerases we will be seeing. So this is discovered in 1958 by Arthur Kornberg, who received Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 1959. So after him, it is also known as Kornberg enzyme. These polymerases are required for what? DNA chain elongation, DNA repair and proofreading. Repair, we call it as 5' to 3' exonuclease activity, and proofreading for 3' to 5' or 3' to 5' exonuclease activity. There are different types of polymerases, 1, 2 and 3 in prokaryotic, and in eukaryotic, alpha to delta. So polymerase 1 and alpha and eukaryotic, their function is gap filling and synthesis between Okazaki fragments of lagging strand. The 2 and in prokaryotes, and the epsilon, beta and the gamma, they are meant for DNA proofreading and DNA repair. Okay, beta is meant for repair and the gamma is meant for mitochondrial DNA synthesis. And polymerase 3 delta in eukaryotes, leading and lagging strand synthesis. I'll be showing you that. Okay, now going on to the steps of DNA replication. Only three steps it has: initiation, elongation, termination. Initiation, elongation, termination. These 3 stages in just a nutshell. Initiation occurs at the origin of replication and it separates the double-stranded DNA, primer synthesis. And elongation, it involves the addition of new nucleotides based on complementarity of the template strand, forms the phosphodiester bonds, correct the mismatch bases, extending the DNA strand. And termination, it stops the DNA replication and it occurs at a specific termination site. Let's look at the initiation. Initiation of replication. The initiation of DNA synthesis occurs at a site called origin of replication. So that's the first thing. So it starts at a point called origin of replication. In prokaryotes, only one site is there. Whereas in eukaryotes, there are multiple sites of origin. These sites mostly consist of short sequence of AT base pairs. A specific protein called protein A or DNA A, we already saw initially. It's around 20 to 50 monomers. This DNA A binds at specific sites of origin and opens the duplex. So first this DNA A binds and opens the duplex. Okay. After that only the helicase comes. Helicase enzyme. Now, two complementary strands of DNA separate at the site of replication to form a bubble. So, what happens is these strands, they separate and at that site, I told you the origin of replication, at that site it forms a bubble. Okay, and as I told you that in prokaryotes only one site is there, whereas in eukaryotes multiple sites of origin. So you will have only one bubble if it is a prokaryote. You will have multiple bubbles if it is an eukaryote. So multiple replication bubbles are in eukaryotic DNA molecules, which is essential for rapid replication process. You see here, this is the origin of replication. Okay, and so your protein, the DNA A, will bind over here. Then you have the binding of helicase. Okay, and then at that site you find a bubble formation. This is the replication bubble or I. Okay, so this is your parent strand, the green color, and then you find the red being the new strand. The steps one by one we will see. Okay, see, in prokaryote it's only a single, okay, origin of replication, only one site is there, so one bubble. You can see just one bubble forming, and then you find the replication. In eukaryotes you have multiple sites of origin. You can see multiple bubbles. You can see this is your original. Okay, and then you can see the short Okazaki fragments. These are the new strands. DNA synthesis is semi-discontinuous and bidirectional. DNA synthesis occurs in both the direction from the point of origin in the replication bubble. See, it starts both the sides. Okay. The replication of DNA occurs in 5' to 3' direction simultaneously on both strands of DNA. Replication, fork and DNA synthesis. The separation of the two strands of parent DNA results in the formation of a replication fork. The active synthesis of DNA occurs in this region. So, it is at the fork region. So, it opens up because the DNA is opening up. So, it forms a fork-like position. And then there is active synthesis and in this region. The replication fork moves along the parent DNA as the daughter DNA molecules are synthesized. Okay. And then you have the DNA helicase. These enzymes, also called DNA B, bind to both the DNA strands at the replication fork. So, after the binding of the DNA A that opens the duplex, you find the DNA helicase, okay, at the fork. Helicases move along the DNA helix and separate the strands. Their function is comparable with a zip opener. Okay, I already showed you. And helicases are dependent on ATP for energy supply. So, see, this is our helicase. So, see, once the DNA A binds and opens the duplex, it forms a fork like this, just like our zip. And this helicase comes and binds at the fork region, and active synthesis also happens in this place. What do these SSB proteins do? Single stranded DNA binding proteins. They are also known as DNA helix destabilizing proteins. They possess no enzyme activity. These proteins bind only to single stranded DNA. That's why they are called single stranded DNA binding proteins. They bind only to the single stranded DNA and keep the two strands separate. They provide the template for new DNA synthesis and protect the single stranded DNA from degradation by nucleases. There can be degradation by nucleases, other nucleases. So the single stranded binding proteins, they save these single strands from these nucleases. So you can see our fork, okay. This is our original strand, parent strand, and starting 5' to 3', and complementary to it 3' to 5', and then the fork. At the fork you have the helicase, okay, and then to release all the supercoiling you have the topoisomerase. You have the single stranded binding proteins, all these blue ones, okay, that are stabilizing these single strand. So one is the leading strand away from the replication fork and the lagging strand towards the replication fork. We will look at the details. Direction of DNA replication. The DNA polymerases responsible for copying the DNA templates are only able to read the parental nucleotide sequences in the 3' to 5' direction. Okay. And they synthesize the new DNA strands in the 5' to 3' direction. That is anti-parallel to that. The two newly synthesized nucleotide chains must grow in the opposite directions, one in the 5' to 3' direction toward the replication fork and one in the 5' to 3' direction away from the replication fork. If you look at this picture, one has to, so this is your parent strand, so you need 3' to 5' like this, 3' to 5' like this, okay. So I'll show you a picture later. See, this is your original DNA, okay, and then you can see 5' to 3', 3' to 5'. So your new DNA is going in this direction, okay, towards the replication fork. The direction of replication is definitely towards this side, because as it opens up like this, so it goes like this, okay. Now elongation of replication. So you have your parent DNA and then you have your new DNA that is synthesized, okay, in the 5' to 3' direction, one side towards the replication fork being the leading strand, and then one side away from the replication fork, the lagging strand. See, this will be continuous, okay, but this will be, there will be breaks over here. So small fragments of nucleotides will come over here. DNA polymerase 3. DNA polymerase 3 initiates the synthesis of new DNA strand by adding deoxyribonucleotide to the 3' end of the RNA primer. This is your primer. Okay, there will be only one primer in this strand. Okay, and the nucleotides are getting added to the 3' end. Okay, this is your 5' end. This side is the 3'. So it gets added only on the 3' end of the RNA primer. Thus, DNA polymerase 3 can synthesize a new chain only in the 5' to 3' direction. You must remember, DNA polymerase 3 can synthesize a new chain only in the 5' to 3' direction. See, your 5' to 3' direction, and only on the 3' end of this RNA primer the nucleotides will get added. Okay, both the DNA strands are synthesized simultaneously but in opposite directions, one in the direction towards the replication fork, the other in the direction away from the replication fork. I've already told you. So one towards the replication fork, the other one away from the replication fork. Okay, this is the RNA primer. See, this is the RNA primer. Okay, so 5', if this is one piece, 5' to 3', 5' to 3', like that. So on the 3' end, the nucleotides get added. On the 3' end, the nucleotides get added. Same like that over here, 5' to 3'. So 3' end, it gets added, and then this is your new strand. DNA polymerase is a master builder. That is the main enzyme responsible for the elongation. Okay, leading strand. This is a continuous or forward strand. This is a strand that is being copied in the direction of the advancing replication fork. Advancing replication fork. The DNA chain runs in the 3' to 5' direction, copied by polymerase 3, and it requires one primer, and the DNA synthesis is continuous, and this new strand is known as the leading strand. So you see over here, this is your leading strand. Okay, only one primer. Okay, it is continuous. Okay, there is no break, it's continuous, and that is your leading strand. You can see the replication fork. You have this leading strand. Okay, that is continuous. You have the RNA primer, the leading strand. Okay, and then you have the helicase that is opening up the double strand. You have the SSB proteins that is stabilizing the single stranded template strand. Okay, these are your Okazaki fragments. We'll come to that later. Lagging strand, it is discontinuous or retrograde. Discontinuous or retrograde. The DNA chain runs in the 5' to 3' direction away from the replication fork. So you can see it running. So this one running away, this 5' to 3' direction, away from the replication fork. Okay, that is your lagging strand. 5' to 3' towards the replication fork is your leading strand. Okay, towards replication fork is your leading strand. Away from the replication fork is your lagging strand. Copied by polymerase 3 in a discontinuous manner, because Synthesis can only proceed in the 5' to 3' direction. Okay, synthesis synthesis can be done only in the 5' to 3' direction. Okay, so that is the reason why this is discontinuous. This requires numerous RNA primers, unlike the leading strand. In leading strand, we saw only one primer. In lagging strand, we have numerous RNA primers. And this new strand is known as the lagging strand. Short pieces of DNA around 50 to 250 nucleotides are produced on the lagging strand. These short stretches of discontinuous DNA only are termed as Okazaki fragments and are joined to become a single continuous strand at a later stage. Okay. So you can see your primer. Lagging strand has many primers. Okay, leading strand only one primer. Okay, and then it is continuous. This is your original one. This is your new strand. It is continuous. But your lagging strand, okay, it is discontinuous. Why? It can proceed only in the 5' to 3'. So 5' 3', it's here. So it just gets added up over here. Do you understand? Here on the 3' end, it's continuously synthesized and it keeps moving forward. Okazaki fragments. Okazaki fragments are short, newly synthesized DNA fragments that are formed on the lagging template strand during the replication. So you see Okazaki fragments only on the lagging strand you will find. Okay. Okazaki fragments are between 1000 and 2000 nucleotides long in prokaryotes and are approximately 150 nucleotides long in eukaryotes. They are separated by approximately 10 nucleotide RNA primers. Two Okazaki fragments are connected into one continuous newly synthesized complementary strand by the enzyme ligase. So ligase plays an important role in making these short discontinuous fragments into a continuous newly synthesized complementary strand. Okay, you can see these Okazaki fragments. Okay, 5' to 3', 5' to 3', like that. So you find the primers over here, and then you find the helicase zipping, opening up the double strand. DNA polymerase 1. These are the DNA polymerase. Okay. DNA polymerase 1. Upon completion of lagging strand synthesis, the RNA primers formed by primase are removed from fragments by DNA polymerase 1. So after the completion of the lagging strand, what happens? The RNA primers have to be removed and it is replaced by the DNA polymerase. DNA polymerase will occupy that place, removing the RNA primer. It also fills the gaps that are produced by removal of the primer, leaving only a nick. So when the primer is removed, a small nick is there and it fills that gap. DNA polymerase 1 cannot join two polynucleotide chains together. So they fill in the gap, but they cannot join two polynucleotide chains together. That is done by another substance. The synthesis of new DNA strand continues till it is in close proximity to RNA primer. So the synthesis continues. It should be almost close to the RNA primer. So till then it will continue, it will synthesize. DNA polymerase 1 removes the RNA primer and takes its position. And it catalyzes the synthesis in the 5' to 3' direction of fragment of DNA that replaces RNA primer. Now ligase, what does ligase do? As DNA polymerase 1 cannot join two polynucleotide chains together, an additional enzyme DNA ligase is required to perform this function. Okay, so we already saw that polymerase 1 cannot, they just fill the gap, they just remove the primer and they sit there, but they cannot join two polynucleotide chain together. So you have DNA ligase doing that job. It joins two polynucleotide chains together by catalyzing the formation of a phosphodiester bond to seal the Okazaki fragments. So all these Okazaki fragments, they will be sealed together by ligase using this phosphodiester bond. In some places they mentioned as PPI. The enzyme DNA ligase catalyzes the formation of a 5-phosphodiester linkage between the DNA synthesized by DNA polymerase 3 and the small fragments of DNA produced by DNA polymerase 1. Okay. And this process of nick sealing requires energy provided by the breakdown of ATP. And DNA polymerase 2 participates in the DNA repair process. So you see all the three types of DNA polymerases coming here. You understand their function. Okay. So DNA is getting synthesized. The new DNA is getting synthesized by the DNA polymerase 3. The small fragments produced by DNA polymerase 1. Okay. And then the repair process by DNA polymerase 2. Okay. You can see ligase trying to seal two polynucleotides, okay, being joined together by the enzyme ligase. Supercoils and DNA topoisomerases. The double helix of DNA separates from one side, and as replication proceeds, supercoils are formed at the other side. Okay, and the problem of supercoils in DNA replication is solved by a group of enzymes called DNA topoisomerases. So I'll show you how supercoils are formed. So you see, even in our telephone wire, we sometimes get these supercoils. So same thing happens with our DNA too. As the replication is proceeding, okay, there are chances of supercoiling. So that who comes to rescue these DNA topoisomerases. This is a positive supercoiling, this is a relaxed DNA, and this is a negative supercoiling. You see, this is just a coil. This is how your DNA strand will look like. And then as the replication fork happens, as the replication starts, okay, they need to be separated. You see how they're getting supercoiled. So to release this tension, you need the topoisomerases. Did you understand? Okay, the last step, termination. Termination sequences, example, TER, direct termination of replication. So the TER protein is responsible for this. A specific protein called as TER binding protein binds these sequences and prevents the helicase from further unwinding of DNA and facilitates the termination of replication. So they say stop, no need for any more unwinding. Okay, so that is your TER binding protein responsible for termination of replication. Then proofreading. DNA is copied by DNA polymerase with high fidelity, that's accuracy, and incorrect nucleotides are incorporated with a frequency of 1 in 108 to 1012 bases, which could lead to mutation. So errors can happen anywhere, anytime. So some incorrect nucleotides can get incorporated, okay, and that is the frequency. But the error ratio during replication is kept at a very low level by specific process called proofreading. So proofreading tries to minimize errors. Mismatches occur more frequently but do not lead to stable incorporations because all the three DNA polymerases have 3' to 5' exonuclease activity, that is proofreading activity. All the three DNA polymerases have the proofreading activity. They are also known as 3' to 5' exonuclease activity. DNA polymerase 1 and 2 are known to excise mismatched nucleotides before the introduction of the next nucleotide. So what these two enzymes will do is, suppose something wrongly gets matched, what they'll do is, even before the introduction of the next nucleotide, they try to remove it. It checks the incoming nucleotides and allows only the correctly matched bases. For example, that is the complementary bases to be added to the growing DNA strand. Sometimes there can be some mismatches. Those things, this DNA polymerase 1 and 2 will excise and remove. DNA polymerase edits its mistakes, if there is any, and removes the wrongly placed nucleotide bases. For example, if the template base is cytosine and the enzyme mistakenly inserts an adenine instead of guanine, you know, cytosine will bind to guanine and adenine to, what is that? To thymine. Okay. So instead of guanine coming in and adenine enters inside into the new chain, what happens? Immediately the proofreading happens. The 3' to 5' exonuclease removes the misplaced nucleotide, and the 5' to 3' polymerase replaces it with the correct nucleotide containing guanine. Okay, so you have the 3' to 5' the exonuclease removing the misplaced nucleotide, 5' to 3' polymerase replacing it with the correct nucleotide. So you must know the function of these two. What is 3' to 5' exonuclease and what is 5' to 3' polymerase? Now we are done with the termination. Inhibitors. Let us look at some of the inhibitors of DNA replication. Prokaryotic topoisomerase, widely used as antibiotics for treating urinary tract infections and other infections. We have some inhibitors like novobiocin, nalidixic acid, and ciprofloxacin. And human topoisomerase, widely used as anti-cancer drug. We have some inhibitors like camptothecin, adriamycin, etoposide, doxorubicin. So some antibacterial, antiviral and many chemotherapeutic drugs inhibit replication. Many antibacterial drugs like novobiocin, nalidixic acid and ciproflox inhibit the prokaryotic topoisomerase, that is DNA gyrase. These topoisomerase inhibitors are widely used for the treatment of urinary tract and other infections. Camptothecin, an anti-tumor drug, inhibits human topoisomerase. Certain anti-cancer and antiviral drugs inhibit elongation of DNA chain by incorporating certain nucleotide analogs like 2,3-deoxyinosine. Inhibitors of DNA replication. Further, let us look at the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic DNA replication. We have already seen certain things now and then. Features: RNA primer length. For prokaryotes, it's around approximately 50 nucleotides, whereas in eukaryotes, it's 9 nucleotides. DNA polymerase, we have 3 types here and 5 types in eukaryotes. The number of origins, we have only a single one in prokaryotes, whereas in eukaryotes, multiple. Nucleotide length of Okazaki fragments of lagging strand. Remember, Okazaki fragments only is on the lagging strand. It's around 1000 to 2000 nucleotides in prokaryotes and approximately 200 nucleotides in eukaryotes. And the rate of replication, it's around 500 nucleotides per second in prokaryotes and 50 nucleotides per second, 10 times lower than prokaryotes. Okay, so this is the end of replication. I hope you understood. Thank you.